Hey guys, it's Seryna. I've had some connectivity issues today, so hopefully this is going to go relatively smoothly. However, Mercury is in retrograde until Friday, so it's very possible that there will be some technological shenanigans, and we're just going to have to be okay with that. I am learning to be a lot less uptight and a lot more chill in my older age because, frankly, I was stressing myself out by trying to make sure that everything was all tickety boo and according to my plan when that is just not reality. So I wanted to answer a question that came into the Lightwalker's path, and I put out the call saying I was going to be doing some video content in February, and I wanted to know what questions people had about anger. So today we're going to talk about what happens when anger crosses the line. I'll kind of give you my little piece on that. However, before I do that, I wanted to just go forward and give you some announcements. So today I got my advanced author copies of Sacred Anger. This is going to be available in 2 weeks and 1 day. So tomorrow it'll be 2 weeks. And Sacred Anger is currently available on pre-order. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is because there are a whole bunch of pre-order bonuses. And it's so funny because I know a lot of people have bought the book and have not signed up for this. And so apparently I am not able to show you my desktop like I thought that I could. Okay, I thought I could share my screen with you, but I think it's only one or the other. Either it's a video or it's a screen share. So we're not going to show you that today. But if you head over to sacredangerbook.com, there's going to be a section about halfway down the page, and it's got 2 steps. Step 1 says order your book. You can order it from literally anywhere. You can order the ebook instead of the print copy, whatever works for you. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you order it. I know a lot of people have hate on for Amazon. There's some vendors there, and the vendors are going to continue to grow. But there are vendors there that are not Amazon that you're able to order from. And when you get your order, it's going to say order number or invoice number or whatever that number is. Then you're going to head back to that page on sacredangerbook.com. And the second step is going to be to fill out the form. So when you click step 2, it's going to take you back to the page that had all the different vendors on it. And the form is at the bottom of that page. So you just want to give me your name, your email, and your order number. And I think it asks maybe like where you ordered it from, just so there's like a little cross-reference there. And the reason you need to do that is because Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Chapters and all those places, they don't actually tell me who bought the books. That's like between you and them. So if I don't have the order numbers, if I don't know that you've ordered, I have no way to send you these bonuses. Now, a bunch of the bonuses are actually already there. So once you sign up, you're going to get an email that says, hey, go to this Google Drive doc and Google Drive, and you'll be able to download these things. I'm still working on some of them. So I've got like 2 weeks to get that finished. But let me tell you what's inside, because I'm pretty excited about it. So the first thing is an interactive journal. So it's all the questions that are actually inside Sacred Anger. Let me show you. At the end of each chapter, let's find the end of a chapter. At the end of each chapter, there's these soul-searching questions. And so there is the culmination of all of these questions in one place. And as well, there's some interactive elements in it that will give you a little bit of extra guidance to go with the direction that the journal prompts are taking you. So there's going to be a PDF that has these interactive elements. Obviously, if you print it, it's not going to do the same thing, but if you're working with it digitally, then you'll be able to get access to it that way. There's workbooks, there's printables, there's going to even be like digital wallpaper, if that's not already in there. There's some recipes. And the most exciting part, at least selfishly for me, the most exciting part is that on the full moon in March, there is going to be a fire ceremony with me. We're going to do it virtually. I used to host these in my Facebook group a while ago. They are a really wonderful place to offload anything that is in the way of your joy. So maybe on that day it's not anger. Maybe you're having a really great day, but you've got some limiting self-beliefs, or you have some fear, or some apprehension, or maybe there's old stories that are playing out for you that that you're ready to create something new with. Whatever the case is, if something is in the way of you and your joy, you can bring it to this virtual fire ceremony and send it packing. And I have had the most amazing feedback from the circles that I hold online. People have these really powerful transformations, and it's open to all levels of experience. So I've had people who've literally never done this before to people who've been doing this for their entire adult lives, and everybody takes away something. So that's the part I'm the most looking forward to. And the way that you can get your invite to that, as well as all those downloads, is to go back to that form. So if you've already bought if you've already pre-ordered, you can still do this. Go to your receipt number, pop it into that form, let me know that that you're coming so that I can send you all of these details, because if you don't fill out the form, I don't know that you're coming. And then the second part of this is that you're invited to the launch party, and it's actually going to have two parts of it. So it's happening on March the 3rd, and I'm going to start off with the official launch party, which is going to be happening in my Facebook community, the Lightwalker's Path. And if you're not already a member, then why aren't you a member? What I've done is created this really cozy corner of Facebook where it is safe for you to want what you want and need what you need and feel what you feel. It is the space of non-judgment, of openness and honesty and vulnerability, where you can come and be exactly as you are, where you can learn and share and grow. And the thing that's super important for me is that we normalize these conversations about the darker sides of spirituality, because it's not always sunshine and rainbows. And I mean, that's the theme of the podcast, which is why they share the same name. It's the name of the Facebook community. It's a place where we can be really honest, because sometimes it's really hard to be spiritual and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get it right all the time. And sometimes it just sucks. And so we need somewhere that we can talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. And that is what this group is all about. So 9 a.m. on March the 3rd, I totally digress there. 9 a.m. on March the 3rd, we're going to be doing the official launch party. We're going to start off with a beautiful guided meditation. We're going to move into reading a passage from the book. And then from there, I'm going to be doing a Q&A, answering all of your questions about anger, about the process, about your experience with anger. I can give you my advice from my perspective, the whole shebang. That evening on my personal page, which sounds kind of weird because, I'm inviting strangers to join me there. But the thing is that like, this is a very personal project for me. So on my personal page, I'm going to be hosting like a cocktail hour at 5 p.m. Pacific. And that's where I'm going to talk more about the behind the scenes process of writing a book, because writing a book is deep, deep, deep inner work. And also answer some questions there, either about the process or about the book or anger or whatever. So you are invited to both of those things. We don't need to be Facebook friends for you to come to the cocktail hour. It's going to be done publicly, so you are 100% invited whether we are connected or not. And I would absolutely love to see you there. Okay, so this question came inside of the Facebook community. I'm just going to read it from the post-it because I want to make sure that I get it right. And so the question was like, what happens when anger crosses the line from being self-affirming and justified to being destructive and unhelpful? And I feel like the order of this is very telling of the person who wrote it, which is someone who I absolutely adore. And here's why. In my experience, it is actually in reverse. It usually starts off being really destructive and unhelpful, and then can sometimes turn into something that's a little bit more justified or a little bit more productive. If we look at things like sacred activism, if we look at not even sacred activism, if we look at activism essentially saying there is something going on in the state of the world, I'm not super happy about it, and I'm going to do something about it. So maybe that is protest, maybe that is writing letters to politicians, maybe that is donating to different causes, maybe it's having uncomfortable conversations with racist relatives at family dinners. All those kinds of things are different shapes of activism. And oftentimes we think about it only in the loud and bold way, but often it's so much more than that. And I think we really don't give enough credit to the quieter things that are happening behind the scenes, but it's very, very, very important work. It's also work that for someone who is an empath or a highly sensitive person is probably a lot more comfortable doing. All of these types of things, even if we take people who are writing books, people who are taking their stories to stages, people who are even just sharing their journey on social media, these are productive uses of our anger. It's ways where we're able to make it mean something. And it's usually the kind of thing that either comes from someone who was raised to be incredibly intuitive and wise beyond their years, or more likely someone who has been there, done that, figured their shit out, and then is going on and being more productive with their anger. When anger is destructive and unhelpful, is that the word she used? Unhelpful. We are in a position of choice. Here is the thing. Anger is not a comfortable emotion, but it's also a valid emotion. Right? It's not so much the feeling it that's the problem, it's what we do with it that it can be the problem. And actually, I think the back of the book says, what if being angry isn't your problem? Because oftentimes It's not. We have been conditioned to respond to certain situations in particular ways. We have been conditioned even based on our gender about what emotions are appropriate and how we're allowed to express them. There is a lot of this outside pressure and these shoulds of how we're supposed to engage with emotions that make other people uncomfortable, and in particular our anger. The question then becomes this: does it make you uncomfortable? What someone might deem to be like destructive or unhelpful might actually just be somebody finally stepping up and owning their truth. And they might be completely okay with that. But for somebody else, they might be completely horrified about how they conduct themselves, or the damage that they've done with their words, with their voices, with their hands, whatever. There's a lot of ways that anger can express itself unhealthily. All of this conditioning that we have been given definitely gives us, a leg up or an obstacle that we need to overcome when we're looking at our own anger in particular. But it doesn't define us. It doesn't decide for us ultimately. It definitely makes the journey easier or harder depending on what your conditions were that you were given when you were growing up. But we ultimately have choice to some degree. If your anger is being used in a way that you feel is constructive and other people feel is destructive and whatever, and you've actually sat down and listened to it, and these are people that you admire, respect, and you go, actually, I don't think there's anything valid here. It's okay for you to keep doing what you're doing. In most cases, though, when the people who love us have genuine concern about how we're expressing our anger, and they're not doing it because they're trying to push their own agenda, or they're trying to put us in a box or make us feel small or different or whatever. They're not trying to control us. Sometimes that's an opportunity that we need to reflect, and we have to come back to this idea of choice. If you don't like the way that you are responding with your anger, in whatever way that it comes out of you, and sometimes it's that it's not coming out of you, it's that you're actually holding it in and it's making you feel physically sick. If you are not happy with how you're dealing with your anger, you are now at the crossroads where you have to decide, are you going to keep doing things the way that you're doing them because the familiarity is more comfortable than the discomfort of doing the work to change the behavior? Or is it time to make a change? If it's time to make a change, then it becomes, okay, great. What are the avenues that are open up to you? It might start with watching some TED Talks on YouTube or buying books and reading them. It may be working with a therapist. It may be working with a coach. It may be digging into inner child work. It might be doing energy healing. Maybe it's past life regression. Sometimes we know the causes of our anger and sometimes we don't. I just really want to be very specific here. Your anger is not the problem. We don't want to make it something that we're not allowed to experience, because I am a firm believer that anger is a sacred teacher. Even when I have fights with my spouse, oftentimes what I'll say is, I'm really sorry for how I said that, but I'm not sorry for how I felt, because the feelings are valid. And I think that that's something that we need to give ourselves a little bit more grace and a whole lot more permission to experience. So the anger itself is not the problem. It's what you do with it. And it's only a problem if you are not happy with what the outcome is and if you're ready to make the changes. This is not something that you need to do by yourself. I think this is all in chapter 8 or something. There's a whole chapter that talks about the role of anger and what we can do with it, and using it as activism and using it for good, using it as a catalyst for change, which I think is a really powerful outlet. You hear a lot of people who have gone to prison and have transformed their entire lives, and then they go and they work in their communities and they take these experiences and they take the things that they learned from their rage and they turned it into beautiful transformations in other people around them. We can do that. We have to just choose it. The tricky part is when we aren't conscious. But when you get to the point where you're asking a question, what happens when anger crosses the line from being self-affirming and justified to being destructive? The awareness is there. And so then it becomes, what do you want to do about it? And more importantly, I just really want to bold, emphasize, exclamation point, that you don't have to do it by yourself. It can be a really hard and lonely journey. Writing that book, it called up so much of my own anger, of my trauma, of the things that I'm still working through as a 40-year-old woman. This is not the stuff that we do overnight, and it's not the kind of thing that we set and forget. So we are going to continue to come back to these lessons. Our bounce back and our resilience is going to get better, and we're going to learn different tools so that we can navigate things better, to the point where, like, sometimes we're not even going to be as triggered as we once were. But this is all that work that we need to put in. And that's why I asked you, are you more uncomfortable with the discomfort of the known and familiar way that you're behaving right now? Or, are you willing to get uncomfortable and learn these new tools, these new strategies, and let it get a bit awkward and weird for a little while until this becomes second nature to you? And it can. I'm not someone who was like gifted with, like the perfect anger management strategies. It's not something I learned at home. It's not something I learned in a book. This is like 20 years of deep inner work and reflection. And this is how I know that it's possible for you, because I had a big chip on my shoulder. I had a lot of walls up. I kept people at arm's length, and I allowed myself to feel like superficial experiences of intimacy, where it felt like it was intimate, but it really wasn't, because I didn't want anyone to get close. I didn't trust them to. And it's a big journey, but it's a possible one. So I hope this answers your question. I'll make sure that this is linked there below. And of course, if you're not already a member of the Lightwalkers Path, I would love to have you join us. And again, you'll have the invite to the party that's going to be happening on March the 3rd in there. And if you have a question that you would like me to cover in the next couple of weeks, you don't have to be a member. You can also pop it into my DMs, and I would be happy to dig into it and give you my opinion on a topic around anger. Not about anything under the sun, but around anger, I am more than happy to jam. So I hope this message finds you well. I hope you'll be joining me for the parties on the 3rd, as well as the full moon workshop in March, the 25th, I think, but don't quote me on that. And I'll be back again probably tomorrow with another little nugget. See you then.